This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.
It's Friday, and I'm Mark Griffiths. It's time for Dragonheart. We know our owners are smart, because unlike some clubs in our league, they can understand basic English vocabulary. After all, they didn't look at the job retention scheme and think, here's a chance to sack some employees. A club owner called McElhenney gave his furloughed staff back every penny. It would only be karma if we won Vanarama, as some clubs furlough too many. Dover Athletic have decided to shut up shop. They've only turned up for half the season, a bit like JJ Hooper. Today, I'm joined by Chay Long, and we'll be looking back on the Woking game, compiling our Racecourse renovation wishlist, and chatting with Rob Ogleby, who starred for us in the last decade. The start of the 2010s was a simpler time, when Snapchat didn't exist, Labour was still in power, and illegal streaming was when you had a Wii in the Gwenfro. So, open your gin bottle, it's time for Dragonheart.
I'm John Ponticelli, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
Alright, so welcome to Dragonheart. Once again, I'm joined by Chay Long. Oh, I love your iconic backdrop this time. That's impressive, that.
Yeah, it's really iconic. I thought every time we do one of these, I thought I'll change it every week to maybe another iconic picture.
Fantastic. Next week, you're going to have Alex Hamilton being accompanied from the cop by the police. A memorable moment in Wrexham Football Club history. The owner of Wrexham Football Club being ejected from his own stadium.
Oh, I remember that happening. I was only a kid. I didn't really know what was going on.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. We've got some good stuff to talk about today. A pleasing performance on Tuesday against Woking. We'll also be hearing from Rob Ogleby, not just about his time as a player with Wrexham, but also him talking about his new business venture supporting players who, after they finish playing, needs to be able to, well, basically get themselves back in society outside of football, which is a bigger challenge than some people might think. And we'll also, in the week when architectural, what's the word I'm looking for? There's going to be an architectural survey of the ground. That's what I'm trying to say. We'll have a talk about what our wish list might be for Racecourse redevelopment. But after this first, we'll be going back in time to the Woking match.
I'm Reece Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
So, on Tuesday, really pleasing victory over Woking, which pushed us higher up the table again. The three at the back system looks to be gelling rather nicely at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's working really well. I think French has really transformed that back three too. I think having another natural centre-back, especially when Vassell's back as well, is going to be really good for us going on. But I think Carrington's doing a fantastic job in place for him. Yeah, really impressed the back three, especially Keller. He had some fantastic tackles and some fantastic interception. He's a real force in the middle of that trio, isn't he?
Suits him, doesn't it? You know, he played on the right of the three for a bit, but in the middle is where he needs to be. And yeah, he looks really, really good, doesn't he? And it's pleasing as well. Like I say, people like Horsfield and Carrington are comfortable in those roles. And even though we've had injury problems and we're playing an extra centre-back, we still managed to do that. And hopefully Vassell's not far off from being fit. But French is good, isn't he? And it's emphasises the importance, not just of having players either side of Kelleher who can defend, but also who can use the ball well, because we are getting out of defensive situations much better. Our transitioning is much, much better now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And what impressed me about French as well, sometimes he acts as that wing back too, because there was a part in the game where he dashed forward and made a nice run with the ball. So even though I know a lot of people criticize Keats saying that we play very defensive sometimes, I think it's quite the opposite. At times, even our centre-backs are making forward runs, which is quite a modern thing to do, isn't it? Like a Tyrone Mings or a Van Dijk do that sort of style of thing. So I've been really impressed with the back three and the two wing backs. and the goalkeeper too, even though he's our second keeper. I think very solid.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think that we've got key elements missing from our defensive units at the start of the season, we'd be looking at people like Sean Pearson, Vassell, and Lainton as being absolutely, key. We're defending very well and looking very solid at the back, and using it as a springboard to go forwards as well. Like I say, that run by French was good. He has played a chunk of his career at fullback as well as at centre back, and you can see he's got those qualities. You can imagine him bombing up and down the wing with his power. Well, no, we don't have to imagine it. We just saw it, didn't we? Sorry. It's nice to see that we've got that variety of different types of defender, and they are releasing the wing backs. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I know it's a slightly blasphemous thing to say, but watching on occasions on Tuesday, Hall Johnson and Record bombing up and down brought to mind a little bit Carlos Edwards and Paul Edwards. I know they're fine players, they were in a higher level, but the influence that our wing backs are currently having on the game is similar to what those two are doing.
Game changers, aren't they? You could argue that they're our two best players.
Yeah.
If you just shown them to if you just shown the last few games to someone who's a neutral fan, they would think that they're our two most solid best players at the moment. And Reece Hall Johnson, I think we're gonna, the way he's playing, I think we're gonna struggle to keep him in the summer. I think he's got the attributes that League One and even maybe Championship or League Two, high flying League Two teams will look at and think, we'll want a bit of that. So
when you see, say, Curtis Tilts, who was perfectly all right for us, but I didn't think it was that outstanding, but had the right attributes, like you say, for Football League style play, he gets snapped up and has stayed at that level. Well, Hall Johnson, I mean, his pace is frightening. Defenders find it extremely hard to cope, don't they? When he's running at them, once he gets going, you got to foul him. Really, haven't you? It's and Records is much more progressive as well, and they look extremely threatening.
Yeah, and what presses me about Record too is how, when I see him up and close, how big and physical he is as well. For a wing back, he's big, he's strong, he's fast. And I know these are all cliches to say, it's what you want out of a defender, but he can do the defending part well. He can make forward runs really well, and he can whip a ball in fantastically. There was that incident. Is it in the second or first half? I can't quite remember. Second half, where he put a beautiful ball in for Thomas for that diving header that come off their boot, their central defender's boot. I'm looking at them two wing backs, and I think they are maybe the piece that we need to maybe get promoted this season. And I know that's a big call. I know it's very early on in the season, but I think the way we're playing, especially our defense will win you games, won't they? All we need is that 1 or 2 goals. So, full of praise there. But I'd like to talk more about the Woking game specifically now. I don't think I was that impressed with Wrexham that game. Can I be quite brutal? I know it's quite... I think it's quite controversial in many ways. I think a lot of people on social media are saying that was one of our best performances this season. I don't think it was. I think Woking pinned us back in our own half a lot, and forced us to defend set pieces, corners too many times. And I think on some occasions, especially with how physical their players like Diarra and their other centre half were big physical guys, they may have got a goal in before half time. And I don't think we played fantastically well, but we still got the 2-0 win, which for me sometimes is more satisfying than winning in a dominant fashion.
Well, you're not alone in thinking that. Dean Keats would agree with you. If you saw what he said after the match, where he felt there were good elements of the performance, but he also thought it was a bit on and off. I sort of, if I'm honest, I think I pulled my feelings about the performance back as time went on after the game. I think it was good, and I'm very happy with it. But like you said, Woking asked questions of us. That's okay. Teams will have spells when they put pressure on. I think your point about set pieces is valid, because they in the first half, when Cooper was putting those corners in from the right, they were getting to them first every time. Every time, if an attacking player gets to a set piece first, you potentially are going to let a goal in. I know it's obvious, but it happened too often. I don't think not having the ball or having to defend necessarily means it's a bad performance per se. And I thought we defended, apart from those set pieces, fairly comfortably. But I would also say that although I was pleased with some of the forward play we had, I think if we are hoping to be in the playoffs, we need to be winning games like that. Yeah. For me, I was happy about it. You couldn't possibly compare that performance for me to the Sutton performance, where we played a team who've been, essentially in second place all season and destroyed them. That was magnificent. I mean, genuinely was. I thought our performance at Eastleigh was very good, actually, because they're a side who were in form, and were it not for the referee, would have beaten them. So I think they've been. I agree with you in context. I especially I think as I calmed down from enjoying commentating on us beating the team. I was pleased with the performance. And I'm pleased by what it means, because I think it's a continuation of a process that we've been talking about for a few weeks now, haven't we? Of this three at the back gelling and the right parts dropping in place. But I don't think we're there yet, but we're heading in the correct direction.
Yeah, I agree. And as I said before, if you're not playing well and still coming home with a 2-0 win, it's great, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
And for me, what won us the game was the goal before half time. I think if we would have gone into second half 0-0, I think it was looking like Woking were going to score over us. Personally, this is what I thought. Anyway, maybe I was looking, because you were commentating, I was looking at the game and typing out at the same time. From what I could see, I thought Woking were I wouldn't say by far the best. I think they had the best chances, and didn't they, in the first half? And I think that Dior Angus goal was a well-worked goal by Reece Hall Johnson. I thought it was absolutely brilliant the way he tackled, ran down the wing, and did he play it to Jarvis first, was it?
Yeah, he tackled. Jarvis held it up well, didn't he, to wait for Johnson to get going, and then fed him in. Yeah. And
then it was a beautiful ball, and looking at the finish from a different angle, the behind the goal angle of the stream, which I'd like to say it was nice looking at the stream highlights, because I thought it looked brilliant, didn't it? The stream itself looked really good. The finish by Dior Angus was a lot harder one than it looked, I thought, and it was a really good finish. 1-0 before half-time. You really can't complain with that, can you?
Absolutely. It's funny, you were saying about chances, and I'm just having a quick look at my notes from the game to back you up, because until the 42nd minute, which was when we did start making proper chances, the only thing I'd written down from an attacking context with Wrexham was when Record drove in across and Cook intercepted in the post, and and Angus was attacking it. So it wasn't even a chance. They didn't even get to our player in the box. And I think the only real reason I noted that down was because it came on the breakaway straight after Kelleher had made that excellent tackle on Ferdinand, where he'd been one-on-one with Dibble. I mean, I would say I didn't think they had too many proper chances. That early header by Diarra from the corner, and that Ferdinand chance, which didn't transpire because of Kelleher. But we have made no notes at all about Wrexham until the 42nd minute, and then the chances did come. There was Davis's deflected free kick, which was an excellent save by the keeper.
What a save! Yeah,
magnificent! When you go in one direction like that, to be able to get back and up.
He made some really good saves, though, didn't he? That game. I think Woking can really hold themselves heads high after that game. I thought they played really well, and I think they definitely won't be in the relegation chat towards the end of the season, because I think they're a side that could hit form and could end up mid-table. So I think they look like a good side.
Well, although they're 18th or something now, in terms of points, they're essentially mid-table. And I think when you look at some of the teams that we've played who are below them, like Kings Lynn, Weymouth. Dover, although who knows what's happening with Dover. They're better than them. You'd be concerned if Woking deteriorated to the point where they slid down there. I mean, there was also the chance for Davis just between that free kick and the goal when the ball was played in from a free kick by Record, and he just took a swing with his right foot and put out for a throw-in. but actually, it was a presentable sight of goal. He was on the penalty spot. If that had dropped on his left foot, he'd have drilled it. and then the goal. And then the second half, we made more chances, but they put more pressure on us. But the big notable thing I thought of that was that we learned a lesson at Dagenham, and it was a very conscious effort to not drop back into the box. We really kept that line outside the area.
I think having Tyler French at centre-back as well really helped us not making much mistakes in the second half and giving the game away, which we could have done because they had their fair share of chances as well. And they started off the second half like they finished the first, didn't they? Another point I'd like to make as well is I'm impressed with the amount of set-piece takers we have.
Yes,
who can do different styles of set pieces. I mean, we have Young, we have Record, we have Davis, who can do equally all well, really good sort of free kicks and corners, which again is another really positive thing to talk about with Wrexham at the moment, isn't it?
100%. And also on the bench, we've got Paul Rutherford, who was it 2 seasons ago, had about 15 assists, mostly from set pieces. I like the way you said like it's a variety of different styles of set piece takers, isn't it? I remember chatting to Andrew Morrell about set pieces, and he was adamant that you don't need a sort of Darren Ferguson style player who can whip the ball into that impossible to defend area. What you need is just a player who's capable of putting the ball into the correct areas all the time to allow your good headers of the ball to have a proper attack on it. And that's what Rutherford is. Rutherford doesn't tear the ball with any great pace, but he stands up those balls that Sean Pearson can launch himself at. And he's right. And another example, I suppose, of that, and it swings me around a bit to a different topic, is right, when people criticize managers and coaches, clearly you can legitimately criticize them. But one of the things I really get annoyed by is when people start talking about what are they doing on the training ground, or they haven't done anything on the training ground, or they're a bad coach, because that's that's just lunacy. You can be a brilliant coach and your players don't carry out your instructions. I really struggle to work out the logic of that sort of comment. It's something that's been levelled at Keats and Andy Davis a lot. I was just interested to hear what Keats said after the match about Hall Johnson, because I felt during close season and during the early half of the season, maybe beyond that, Hall Johnson's pace gets him into wonderful positions, and often there isn't an end product, or he'll drill a cross that, those drilled crosses look spectacular, but actually they rarely get anybody on the end of them because he hit them so hard. They flash past the 6-yard box before anyone can get there, or he'd overhit them. And now he definitely is finding end product. It's 3 games in a row he's had an assist. First Wrexham player since Jason Oswell to do that. I don't remember Jason Oswell being so effective, but fair play to the lads. And then afterwards, Dean Keats said that he's been working on that with Hall Johnson, essentially doing what I said Morrell said about set pieces, saying once you get in those positions, you don't have to then do something spectacular. You don't have to rip that glorious ball in. You feed it in then, just put it into an area where the strikers can compete for it. And we saw that beautifully with Angus. A lovely finish, that, wasn't it? Where you think the defender's just, look at it from behind. You think the defender's going to get there and block him off, and he's just managed to work his body around to get his foot to it first and slot it. You don't have to lay the perfect ball on for a tap-in to give the strikers something to use. And the same with that cross you mentioned before, Record to Thomas. Thomas will win a fair share of the headers if you put it in from those sorts of high up the pitch areas, no question.
And that was tremendously defended by Woking as well, wasn't it? Because I think on other occasions that would have been a goal. But I to be honest with you, I'm really growing to be really impressed with this Wrexham side. We don't seem to have a real clear weakness. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we have a area on the pitch. Maybe the bench can be, because of injuries, the bench can be a bit thin at times. But and
a bit samey as well.
That's, and maybe that'll be something we can address in the summer. And I think we've got players in key positions that if they get injured, another player can slot in and do that role really well. We have Horsfield who can play anywhere, can he? Slot in and do a job.
Yeah,
We have
Davis is
Carrington.
in.
Yeah, Davis is
yeah.
the same. Carrington.
Yeah.
And Keats has a lot of dilemmas at the moment, which is brilliant, and it's the sign of a good side, isn't it?
Yeah. It's problems like to sum up those nice dilemmas. When Jordan Davis is playing at left wing back, I'm sitting there thinking this guy's the best wing back in the division. And when Record was brought in ahead of him, I thought, oh, I'm slightly surprised at that. But now you think, okay, I don't know which of those two is the best left wing back in the division, but I'd be surprised if anyone else would compete with them. That's a great problem to have, isn't it? And my one area of concern, I mean, okay, we've just had a massive injury crisis at the back, and we've got good results throughout it. So, right, okay, even though we've had to patch things up, you would hope it couldn't get worse than this. People are starting to come back to fitness, so we seem to be well covered there. And it was smart to switch the three at the back because it allowed more versatile players to come in. I don't know if you want Horsfield or Carrington to be playing regularly in a back four in the centre. But also, there are areas where I think, right, if we start getting injuries up front, because of our inability to bring anyone in, up front we have three strikers. If we have issues of that, we either change our formation, which would be a shame when things are clicking, or who's the next one to play up front? Jarvis, possibly, I suppose.
Durrell.
Yeah. Sean Pearson has played up front, a young player at Boston. And then likewise, I'll sleep a bit better when Lainton's fit. Whichever keeper is in there, the fact that we can't bring in a backup keeper at the moment is a major issue. If, when Dibble went down at the end of that game on Tuesday, I was thinking, oh, please no, because we can't recall Shachapaniak. We would have to either do some super fast dealing, or, and when I say super fast dealing, again, that in itself is complex. Just to reiterate, the rules are we can either bring in a player who was on a free transfer on the 2nd of February, not someone who's been released since. So that, that's restrictive. We could bring in a third level Welsh player, which I suspect would probably not be any better than using an outfield player in goal. Or we could test the system and try and bring in some sort of unattached player in England and try and test out whether we're allowed to, like, low-level English player. And the problem with doing that, and I can tell you there have been sniffs around that with the club, which aren't definitive. So we might be able to do that, we might not. But the only way we'd find out is by doing it, and it could all fail, because ultimately you have to put it into the FIFA computer. And if you put it into the FIFA computer and it rejects it, you can't do that, even if the Welsh FA and the English FA say, no, go on, do it. But if the FIFA system rejects it, tough. So that's a tricky one. And it wouldn't be something you could probably do like in Tuesday to Saturday either, because you'd have to go through a lot of different steps before you even got to test it out. So it's a major problem, that. So I'll be happy when Leighton's available.
Yeah, we could see if maybe could dust his old gloves off.
Hey, there you go.
He's not playing at the moment.
But, I'm available. I played in goal quite a long time ago. I'll be honest. I think I've got to fill the goal more now. I'll admit that. You were a goalie as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I was a keeper. I'll put the gloves on. I'll try and do something. I don't know what it is, but I'll try and do something.
Just distract them.
Yeah, just
like a rodeo clown.
Maybe jump around like Rush 2, the Turkish keeper, used to do.
Oh, yeah.
Another player I really like to mention is Jarvis. I think he played outstanding.
Yeah.
He was the key element to our goals. He had a fantastic shot, which was well saved by the keeper. That could have been goal of the season, couldn't it? If that would have gone in.
Wasn't it? Yeah. And again, like you said, the keeper did well, didn't he? He was quickly across. He did really, really well. I mean, the thing is, I think Harris comes back in, which is harsh on Jarvis. But when we've had poor away performances, I know Harris has played in them. But I could imagine the midfield we played on Tuesday against a strong midfield getting a little bit overwhelmed, perhaps. They're fine when they've got time to play on the ball.
Yeah.
But, up against a side that just grinds through the middle, they might have problems. So I think Harris is important. And Harris, actually, to be fair, has been in his best form of the season until he picks up the knock on Tuesday. And if he's fit, I think he'll play on Saturday. But Jarvis has got quality, and he's a player I want us to be able to utilise, because he'll break teams down. And I just thought that move for the penalty was the best move I've seen this season from us. And it's all about having decent players who can play with their head up. Jarvis is touched to bring the ball down and then to play the pass out wide at the right time to set things up. There's those little things that you only notice when people do things right,
I think Record did a good job with that goal as well, distracting the wing back from what was going on in the middle, because that was a fantastic run by him, which he could have played the ball to him too, but he played the ball to Diorangus, and it was a beautiful through ball to Thomas, wasn't it? Yeah. And a lot of people criticise Thomas, saying, why didn't he ever go first time? Or he maybe took too long on the ball. But at the end of the day, he got the penalty. Yeah. Which, it's...
well, again, I mean, what was he supposed to do? He goes round the keeper, and if the keeper doesn't grab his leg, he scores.
Yeah.
Because he beat the keeper. The keeper couldn't stop him, so he fouled him. So where's the issue in that? And the only way that instant could have gone differently would be the ref, I think, would be entitled to give a red to the keeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's one-on-one with the keeper. He's going around him. He's going to score. He gets fouled.
Penalty.
Him for that.
Beautifully slotted in penalty as well, which you'd expect from Young, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't expect anything else.
Especially because Thomas beforehand was saying, "Can I take it, please?"
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was more than happy with what Thomas did, and the link at play prior to the goal was outstanding. And I think what Wrexham could do with Diorangus on the pitch as well, because I think he's been an absolutely exceptional addition to the team.
He brings something different. His quality, his first touch is really good, and his awareness is good. And like you say, that lovely pass for Thomas, it's not just that he can play those passes, it's also that, well, Thomas and he understand each other. They're on the same level. Yeah. Thomas looks a lot better with Angus alongside him. When Angus gets the ball in that position, Thomas knows what run to make instinctively, and that's encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it'd be quite nice to see how Dior and Ponticelli would do up front with each other, because I think Dior does a lot of the hard work that Thomas doesn't do, which makes space for the other striker. And I do think if Ponticelli's in front of goal, he will get the goal, and as soon as he does get that first goal, I think his confidence will shoot up, because I think he strikes me as a confidence player. So I think it would be nice to see how them two would do up front as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting, and they would both have the pace to get in behind defenders, and it pose a different threat, and it's nice to have these sort of problems.
Yeah.
I tell you, the only thing you could add to that front line, say you want a fourth striker, would be Rob Ogleby. Oh, I feel a one-show link coming up. And let's hear from Rob now, shall we? So Rob Ogleby, of course, was a striker for Wrexham under Andy Morrell, who played at Wembley and is now embarking on some very interesting football-related business ventures. So after this, we'll hear from Rob Ogleby.
I'm Elliot Durrell, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
A quick extra bit in here for video viewers. It just feels a bit unfair if I don't mention here that the interview with Rob Ogleby, not McElhenney, that's to come, there's only video of him, not of me. This isn't a sort of a stitch-up. I've always done these recordings as audio recordings on Zoom because I don't want to run the risk of the connection being poor and it dropping out. And my logic was that audio only will take up less bandwidth. However, Rob left his camera on, and I should have told him to switch it off. For some reason I didn't, don't know why. And the fact of the matter is that it held up fine. That's why I then experimented of recording the Dragonheart with video, and it all seems to be working okay. So apologies to Rob that you can see him and not me, although let's be honest, if you could only see one of us, you'd want it to be him. I mean, look at this guy. So also there's a slight problem at the start, so there's no there's There's no video at the very start of the interview. It kicks in after about 10 seconds. Don't worry. Right, so here he is, Rob McElhenney. Rob, I've said it again. Rob Ogleby. Oh, well, Rob, thank you so much for joining us. It's really good to chat to you.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers for reaching out.
Oh, no problem at all. I mean, we remember with fondness your time at Wrexham, of course. It was a time when the team was really going well, wasn't it? You arrived when the team was really flying, heading towards the playoffs near the end of the season, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think I was a deadline day transfer, actually. I think I cancelled my contract with Hearts on I think it was the 30th. I think I had a couple of options. It was either to go back out on loan or Wrexham said they were interested, and I think it was through the Welsh connection. And
Mozza knew a few guys at Coventry who kind of put in a good word as well. So yeah, it was it all happened quite quickly actually, and it was a time at Hearts where I think that I went that kind of Christmas and without being paid, the Lithuanian owner. So I just felt it was probably time to move on rather than go out on loan again. And then the years following that proved that it was a good decision. So yeah, I joined and I actually went in. I think I was put up in a hotel with Dan Alfie, who signed on the same day as me, and I knew Alfie through playing with him at Wales 21. So we joined a very good squad. The team was in a good position. I think I still talk about it now, how we didn't go up on 98 points is just ridiculous. But I think the way we bounced back that next season as well was brilliant. But I think I didn't make too many appearances in the first year. I think I was coming off the bench quite a bit. Yeah. And then I think I scored my first goal down at Cambridge, and then we got to the playoffs, and I think I had the hamstring injury when we were playing away at Newport. Which was quite frustrating. So I never got to actually play in the playoffs. So yeah, no, it was a good first 6 months with the club, and obviously the next season was one to remember, which we just missed out on the playoffs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that next season, you started off by establishing your habit of scoring on the opening day of every season.
Yeah,
that's quite a nice habit to have, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I always made sure was going into pre-season that I was always fit and kind of ready to go. I probably wasn't the most technically gifted player, but I always wanted to make sure that I was fit. I could get up and down the pitch, and where Mozza wanted me to play was kind of out wide. I've mentioned him a few times that I'll prefer it down the middle, but I think the way he wanted to play, he wanted to kind of have that two wide men that were basically strikers as well. So I didn't mind doing the job for the team, but I just wanted to kind of make sure I was fit and ready to go. And I think that pre-season, I scored 5 or 6 goals in pre-season. I felt good. And then I think I can't remember where we played. I think it was Welling. Was it Welling or Woking? I think it was. And yeah, I think it was Ashley put a cross in and volleyed it into the top corner with the left peg, which is a collector's item. So yeah, the season started really well actually, and then I think then it was probably a month later was the ankle problem started, which was quite a tough time actually. I think I did it in training. I've gone to hit a shot and my studs have stayed in the ground, but my legs twisted, and that put me out for kind of 6 weeks to 2 months, I think it was, which was quite frustrating after having such a good start. It was also the season, of course, when we won the FA Trophy. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, no, it was that I was going to say that growing up as a child, I think you watch all the FA Cup finals and all the cup finals, and to be able to say, I know it's not the same, but to be able to say you've walked up the Wembley steps and lifted a trophy, you can never take that away from anyone in the team really. And it was the whole kind of experience of going through the rounds, and I think I remember the first round was I think we were with Solihull, was it? And that was a game I got knocked out. So I thought, oh God, here we go again. And then it was, luckily I got back fit, and I think we were playing down at Sutton. It's the ground's a bit different to what it was back then. And I think the game was lucky to go on, but it was a professional performance. And I think any time we either played a team in the lower divisions, we kind of made sure that we're professional and got the results, and obviously that got to the final, which was a great experience. And I think I was playing for Wales 21s the Friday before, so I think that it was on the Sunday, wasn't it? And everyone was struggling to get down with snow and everything. We just beat Moldova the 21s, and then I managed to jet across to London, and I think I've come on around the 60th minute. I think he brought me and Sis on around similar times. And I don't know if that was it. It was probably a tactic he had anyway to bring on those fresh legs. I know he went with, I think it was him, Danny and Brett to start with, experienced heads, and then fresh legs with me and Sis coming on, kind of open the game up and give us a different dimension going forward.
And it worked because we really took the game to them, didn't we? I mean, it was fairly even until I think that point where you came on, and then you and Sis were really causing them problems, and we should have won it really without it going to penalties because their keeper kept them in it.
Yeah, definitely. I think he had the game of his career that game, and I remember Keatsy going up to him at the end, and I know Keatsy knew him from previous clubs or playing against him before, and he was man of the match on the day, and it's unfortunate to win man of the match but be on the losing team, especially at Wembley. But yeah, I think we deserved it in the end. I think we were knocking on the door. I think Dan Wright had a chance where he kind of, I think I played it to him across the box and he tipped around the post, and then Sis had one in the second half of extra time. But to go there and with I think it's been a tough time for the club over the years before, and to take, I think we took 18,000 there. And yeah, it was a great experience, and one the club definitely deserved and the supporters deserved, because it had been a tough few years for them.
I was going to ask you about the penalty, but I've got to ask you something first about what you just said, because it's interesting because by that point, I think the off-field problems were starting to be put in the past a bit. And that really interests me, because you often get the feeling that managers, never mind players, often are a bit cut off from problems that happen off the pitch. And it's interesting to hear, because you've come, when most of the bad problems are gone, but you still had that strong sense of this is a club that's had to go on a journey to get to where it is. Yeah,
definitely. I think with Wrexham, I think it's a very much a community club, and like after the game, there'll be fans in the bar that are always kind of happy to have a chat. Mainly when it's going well, not so much when we're the season after. But I think it's nice. You always speak to people, and the whole place is all about the football club. So you get to know kind of what's gone on, what everyone did to make sure that the club was still going to go in, and you definitely get that community feel. And I think, it definitely kind of went down to the pitch, and it was just a great day for the whole club and the whole community, really.
Well, that's good to hear. That's really interesting. Yeah. I've got to ask about when you're on the pitch at Wembley and that final whistle goes at the end of extra time. Yeah. What sort of thoughts go through your mind when there's a penalty shootout looming?
I hope the first five get the job done, basically. I've never been one for penalties, to be honest. I think, to be fair, when I was at East Fife on loan, I took one when we beat Aberdeen, and I don't mind taking them, but I don't know. I think people with a bit more experience than myself stepped up, and I kind of regret it now not taking a penalty at Wembley, but I'd much rather have the team win and go that way. But yeah, I think that people put themselves forward, and I don't think we missed one really, did we? I think the one thing the keeper did wrong all day was we went to the same side every penalty, and I think we noticed that. And I remember when we were lined up at the on the halfway line, they kept on mentioning that he's gone the same way, and and then obviously Johnny did the important part.
Did you know what number you were? Would you have gone next, or?
Oh, I don't know. I can't even remember who was on the pitch. Potentially, yeah. So I'll probably have my fingers crossed that Johnny did score.
And then playoff disappointment again, and at the end of that season, of course, which was frustrating. And then that summer, well, the ownership, they inherited a lot of debt, and you could see the budget was going down a bit. And the next season, not very different, wasn't it?
No, definitely. And I think we had two big losses. Obviously, Danny Wright was unbelievable that season. And he, obviously, Forest Green were throwing money about, and it was a no-brainer for him at the end of the day. Then they were offering, obviously, more money than Wrexham could offer, but also he knew he had more chance of getting promoted with them with what they were doing. So I think we obviously lost Danny. I think we lost Rolls as well, who was a big loss. And I think it was tough actually. And I don't know if we had a bit of a hangover the season after following that to doing so well for 2 years and then following up with it. It was tough. And yeah, it was the playoffs. I still can't believe we didn't win that game. I thought in the semi-finals, I thought Brett Ormerod was the best he'd played all season in both games. It was unbelievable and kind of got us through there. I don't think we were a team that ever looked like losing. I thought we were always solid. You obviously had the back four that was kind of solid all season. The midfield three, in terms of you had Keatsy kind of leading it, Jay Harris him and Joe doing the running in there as well and keeping the ball, and they were just a constant threat going forward as well. And then I think the front line, whoever the three played up top, whether it was myself, Sis, Brett, Danny, Mozza himself, and obviously Delhi came in as well, and Rushy played his part. It was how we didn't go up one of those seasons was quite tough, and I don't know if there was a bit of the hangover after it, but the one thing that remained the same was the team spirit was always there. I think Moz got a great group of guys together, and I'm still in touch with most of them. I went to Joe's wedding a couple of years ago. Obviously, constantly on the phone to the guys and staying in touch with them. So it was tough, but yeah, the season after, I think I personally was still struggling. I had the operation on my ankle in the summer. And I think that was the first time I played for the first team. I was doing a lot of training with playing for the 18s to get minutes, to get my fitness back. And I think the first time I played for the first team was that when I came on first game of the season and managed to score again, which was a nice feeling. And then it was just a tough season. We seemed to be, I don't know what it was really. It just didn't seem to go our way. But I think the effort and, as I said, the team spirit was still there, and we were fighting for it. And it was absolutely horrible when Moz came in and told us that he was leaving. I think it hit everyone quite hard that day because he brought in a great group of guys, and as most kind of Wrexham fans know, he's probably one of the nicest guy in football. Yeah. So to see that from a manager and someone you got on with very well, and someone who trusted in you and give you a chance, it's quite hard to see. And then obviously it was a bit of a clear out at the end of the season when what's his name now?
Kevin Wilkin
came in. Yeah, so it was one of them. It's part and parcel of football, and I think it was quite a shock to everyone really to have such a high for the first 2 years while I was there, and then the next season was like, oh God, what's going on here? So yeah, it was a tough year, and I think it was a tough year for a lot of the boys mentally as well. There's a lot kind of going on in terms of players leaving, big players leaving as well, and it does take an impact. And yeah, it wasn't a nice way to finish. I should have finished with Wrexham the year before on a high, but
am I naive in feeling that after what Andy had done, not just as a player, okay, but as a manager, and he knew that there were things to put right. I know football's tough, but he'd earned the right surely to try and fix it rather than go there.
I think we were going through. It was a rebuilding process. I think you look at the players we lost and we needed to replace them, and we brought in good players, but I still think there was. I don't think we would ever have gone down that season. I don't think there was a chance of that. I think we were too good for that. But we probably needed another transfer window to bring in some new blood, some fresh blood. And yeah, everyone knows what football's like. Do people make decisions too early? Who knows? It's easy to say in hindsight, isn't it? But yeah, I thought he deserved more time. I think what he did over a few seasons, and we probably never had the biggest budget in the league. Even the kind of 2 seasons we got to especially the second season, there would have been teams paying a lot more money than we were. And it was what Moz did really well is he brought in a good balance of experienced players that were obviously like Keatsy, Ashy, and also the guys like Glenn. Glenn was always a good person to have, Westy. There's a good balance of the older guys, Righty and Brett as well, that helped out the younger lads, which we had kind of, it was kind of two extremes. There's a few players in the kind of middle of their career, but a lot of the lads were starting out, and then there's a lot of lads coming towards the end. There was a nice balance, and Moz created a great change room there, and he probably did deserve more time, to be honest, with what he did, and he probably would have gone on to build another good changing room. But as I said, it's easy to say in hindsight, that's more of a problem answer.
Yeah, I mean, and then Kevin Wilkin, he picked you in this first game, but you got injured soon afterwards. And again, it was frustrating to me to see you being let go. You did come back to haunt us, though, because we get to the FA Trophy final the next season. I don't really want to talk about what happened in that match. Yeah. But the game before, we were away to Nuneaton, which was your new club, and you scored against us, didn't you? So.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was quite nice, especially with the manager who let you go. It was, to be fair, that whole season, since the ankle injury and obviously had the operation in the summer, I've struggled with it, and I still struggle with it now. I had a bit of cartilage and bone taken off the ankle, so it was never right. And someone who depends on their pace and athleticism, it wasn't ideal. But it was quite nice. I think it was 2-0, wasn't it? But I think the team was kind of up and down at the moment at that point. But yeah, it was quite nice to score against the guy. I still speak to Kev now, to be fair, with the agency stuff, and I get on really well with him. But yeah, it was quite nice to score against yourselves, which I apologise for.
We'll forgive you now. Yeah. The league was gone by then anyway, to be honest. Yeah. I've got to say, one of the reasons I was sad to see it go was because you always had a very good attitude, and I found proof of that this afternoon. I found an interview I did with you.
What did you?
It was in your last season with us.
Yeah.
We'd obviously must have played like 4-4-2, and you were playing as a wide midfielder. And you were telling me how much you absolutely loved coming back and doing the defensive stuff. And I thought, you're the first striker in history of football who's ever done that. Wow.
Yeah, to be fair, as long as you do your part for the team, I think it's key. And though the seasons we had when we were up in the playoffs and doing well, I think everyone was doing stuff and maybe they did enjoy so much. And it's always nice if you come back and play a part of the team. And as long as you come away with 3 points, however pretty or ugly it is, I think that was all that matters. And sometimes the uglier wins were a lot better than the kind of 5-0s. I think you do enjoy it more, and it definitely brings the team together.
Yeah. You then came back, of course, with Sam Ricketts.
Yeah. I moved down to London a few years before. So I was playing. Went up to Livingston for 6 months. I won't kind of go into that. But then I played a bit of part time up in around Coventry, and then I moved to London. I had an opportunity for work and didn't really want to turn it down. And then a couple of years after I think I was down here, I was keen to get back into football. And then I knew Luke Fogarty, who was the chief scout that Sam brought in, and I kind of mentioned to him, is there anything going? And he was looking to build a network of scouts, which, to be fair to Sam, I know he's not the most popular guy in Wrexham, but what he did do with the scouting network was absolutely brilliant. I think we had about 5 scouts working for the club at the time, which we probably never had before. And what I would do is, I would do the opposition reports and also player reports. And we'll do like 2 games in advance. So if we were playing, I'd say Barnet, because I seem to be at the Barnet ground quite a lot down in London. But we'd do a two match reports on them, like the opposition reports, and then kind of feedback before they were going to play them. But because there's so many clubs down in London, I think we had 3 scouts here in London that would kind of help out.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, you've got business that you do within football still now, and you started off a new business, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've become a registered intermediary, which is ultimately a football agent last year. I think it was always something that I was quite keen to do and support young players coming through. The agency when I was with as a player were brilliant, but they were quite a big agency, so I probably didn't have that support as much as support as probably needed when the times were tough, when I was injured or was not kind of out of the team or kind of low on confidence. So what I wanted to do was become an agent to support these young lads and help them through their career. And I've been doing that for the last year, and it's going really well. We've got quite a few guys on board with the agency I work with, which is a new agency, but they're all about the right philosophies in terms of supporting the player rather than trying to make a quick quid and kind of use players basically to try and make some money. But we've had a lot of phone calls with parents, and one of the questions is always what happens if it doesn't go well, which a lot of the time it tends to be the case that their career doesn't last as long as they probably hoped for. And there's obviously this small group of players that manage to go on and play in the Premier League or the Championship, and especially with all the foreign players coming over now. What I decided to do was set up a business that helps kind of any sports professional out after they finish their career. So yeah, it's called Beyond Sport, and I started it last month, I think it was, but there's a lot of planning going into it beforehand. So yeah, it's going quite well actually. I've signed 2 partners up over the last couple of days. One which is called Access Training. They do the training for like tradespeople. So if a player wanted to become an electrician, plumber, we can kind of introduce them to them. And also today, a business called Premier Global, they agreed to come on board and they do like personal training, strength and conditioning training. So if people want to become a qualified personal trainer, they can kind of go to them and I would introduce them to them, and they'll train them up as a personal trainer, and then there's various different avenues they can explore after that. So yeah, it's been something that I've been quite passionate about. When I stopped playing football, it was quite hard to get a job, or in the proper world, should I say, to get a proper job. And I had to rely on people that I knew to kind of introduce me to people. And every time I sent my CV, I think everyone thought a stereotypical footballer, thick, doesn't know what he's doing, but kind of through knowing people and kind of reaching out to people, I managed to get a couple of jobs out after football, and it's something that I want to kind of give back to players and help them out once their careers is over, or help them plan for when they are going to finish.
I don't think anyone who's ever spoken to you would think you're thick. I can promise you that for nothing. But
oh, well, I won't be too sure.
No. But it's good that you do that. Yeah. In that, the media often want to give this blanket definition of footballers as overpaid, set for life, living the dream.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that's just the tip of the iceberg, and the majority of footballers, they've often, because they've focused on their game. They may not have stayed in education as long as they could have done. They may not have done apprenticeships, and they come out the other side having to then start again, and it's a hell of a difficult situation, isn't it?
No, 100%. I think when you say you're a professional footballer, people assume you're on loads of money and you live the glamorous lifestyle. But underneath the Championship and the top half of League One, I think it's you're only an injury away from having to do something else. And I think you're not going to be able to live on what you've earned as a footballer unless you invest it really well. You're not going to be able to live on your footballing wage for the rest of your life. So you need to kind of make contingency plans. So it's something that players should look at more. And I know when you're young and you're a young footballer playing kind of in a first team somewhere, you never think that it's something else, that you need something else. But I think when I went up to Livingston after getting let go from Wrexham, I joined up with the Open University and started doing a course there. And I think it is important. And my mum was always banging on every season, come on, you need to do something that can back up the football. And I just think it's so important for lads to do that. And you could have a career up to kind of late 30s, but you should still plan for what you're going to do. And the amount of time a lot of footballers have on their hands, if they're kind of training in the mornings and not doing anything in the afternoon, you still finish quite early. It's not quite a 9 to 5. So you have got time to develop yourself and kind of train in something that whether it's kind of becoming a personal trainer, doing a degree, whatever it is, and you have got time to kind of educate yourselves and make sure you will be looked after following your career.
You must have to, I assume, look sometimes at the sort of psychological support in a sense as well, because footballers say that they're not good watchers of a game when they're injured. Well, once your game is over, there's no chance you're getting back in there, and that must be a massive impact on players. And then also that sense maybe of going from feeling terrific worth naturally from being an important part of a team to suddenly starting off almost like a kid coming out of school, perhaps.
No, definitely. And I think one thing that the agency I'm with, so obviously the two businesses and two ventures I'm kind of working on go hand in hand, really. But we've got a kind of mindset coach on board, a guy called Martin Pemberton. He played for a variety of clubs. I think he retired in like 2008, and he'll be kind of okay with me saying that he went through a lot of troubles after retiring, and kind of went into depression, and he set up his own charity now and business to help players with their mindset. So whether it's goal setting, kind of maybe just a chat when they're injured or their confidence is low. So one thing we do put a massive one of our massive selling points as an agency is that we're not only here to support the player in the footballing side, but also your kind of wider life. And Martin does a lot with the young players about goal setting, how you're feeling, kind of when you play well, what are you thinking, kind of when you play bad, what you're thinking, and kind of gets their mindset right. And I think now more than ever, it's obviously being put to the forefront is the kind of mental health and well-being, especially with the current situation where a lot of people are locked away in their houses and can't leave their houses. The kind of well-being side is so important at the moment.
Well, exactly. The sort of work you're doing is going to become even more important now as the COVID pandemic continues, and we wish you all the very best with that. And as well, thank you for all you did with the club in both player and scouting areas. And thank you so much for joining us. It was really good to chat to you again, Rob.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Yeah, so Rob Ogleby there, lovely fella. And well, firstly, I mean, it just shows, doesn't it? I mean, Ogleby was in and out of the team in that very strong side that we had that won the FA Trophy and should have gone up. There have been times since then when, quite frankly, he'd be out and out first choice, a quick striker who's also big. You had an eye for goal. We've had times of drought where a player like that would have been very gratefully received.
Well, we could do with him now, couldn't we? A player like that right now would have been ideal. But what interests me the most is what he's doing right now and helping out the younger players and helping out retired players who have never really worked in the I don't really want to disrespect footballers. They've never worked in the real world. I think having someone doing what he's doing now to helping older players and younger players is crucial, isn't it, for these people, for these players' developments later in life?
Exactly. I mean, we're not talking about your Premier League players who make enough money during their careers to keep going. I mean, most footballers are not in that boat. Most footballers have got like a 10, 15-year career, possibly shorter because of injury or just getting released. I mean, gosh, this summer there's going to be a lot of unemployed footballers. And, often these lads have maybe not completed their education because they get the chance to play football. I mean, I went to uni and all that. God, if Wrexham had offered me a contract, I've got to say we really are in the realms of fantasy here. But if they had, I wouldn't have gone to uni. I'd just signed for Wrexham. No two ways about it. No brainer. But that it doesn't fully prepare you for life outside football. Football itself is a strange sort of self-contained thing. And going out of that can, I think, leave you a bit exposed. And I think as well, losing that changing room camaraderie, which is a support system in and of itself, can be a shock. So I think the things he's doing and the way he's also preparing young lads coming into football, to have a view of what might happen outside football, I think that's really good work.
Yeah, it's vital for these young and older fellas who, it must be hard when you're an older footballer having people chant your name and scoring goals and everyone going wild. I bet it's a buzz that me or you could never ever imagine. Well, I've competed in mixed martial arts and I've won fights, and that was a hell of a buzz. But imagine doing that every single week where people are chanting your name and you're known around town. It must be hard once that stops.
Yeah.
To then go to, say, a factory and work. It must be so hard. So I'm really thankful that he's doing what he's doing.
Well, I mean, it's brought it home to me, that your point, doing this show, because I've been working with contacts to get old players on, like Rob, and okay, some of them are doing things like Rob in football, but there's a lot of players from a time when you weren't making so much money as a footballer, and fairly recently, who are just out there in Wrexham earning a crust now, doing whatever. I'm not going to name names because I think I sound slightly patronising saying that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, but do you know what I mean? The people have this perception in their heads of, these super rich footballers, that's only the tip of the iceberg. The rest of them finish playing. And even if they were, like you say, people who had good careers playing week in, week out in front of thousands of people, hero worshipped, they'll go off then and they've got to work for the rest of their working life. It is been quite interesting for me to see what people are doing. Like I said, without wanting to, sort of name people.
Yeah. Even the Premier League footballers struggle after they retire.
Yeah.
They might not have invested their money correctly. They might have bought one too many sports cars, and then the income stops coming in.
Yeah.
Where do they go from there?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, gagging orders aren't cheap, are they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Shouldn't have said that, should I? The famous story of the England footballer who was so rich that he loved going to the bookies, and he regularly, every week, was getting a £25 fixed penalty for parking on WR lines, because to him that was the equivalent of putting 50p in the meter on a parking meter. So we'd just park on a WR lines outside the bookies, stroll in, take the fixed penalty, 25 quid. Meh. Well, yeah, that's not the experience of most footballers.
Yeah, it isn't. It's as we say, it'd be nice for the stereotype of all footballers are flash, rich people, because that's what the media portray them as. They don't want to portray them as anything else but a footballer. So I was listening to a Tyrone Mings podcast the other day. Well, have you heard of the High Performance podcast before?
Yeah, I've heard this other one. Mings can only get better.
Yeah, they were talking about how people on Twitter say, "Oh, well, you're just a footballer. Stay in your lane." When he's investing in businesses, and he, footballers are a lot more than just what you see on the football pitch.
Yeah, exactly right. I've got to say though, on a point of order, Chay, I've got to call you out here. You assumed that I don't know what it's like to have crowds shouting my name. I don't mean outside court, but yeah, I've experienced this. I've experienced the roar of the crowd as I make a beautiful save. Probably the most memorable element, the most memorable example, was a terrible match that I played. When I say terrible match, I mean terrible performance by me, where I had an absolute nightmare in a Welsh Youth Cup game at the Racecourse. And there was this kid, he sounded like he was about 8, in the stand behind the Wrexham stand, just constantly just shouting how rubbish I was at me. And that really sticks in my head, that does. The tragic thing is, that child was right. Sometimes you're letting the back pass, and it's fair enough. It's just one of those things that happens. But when it's a back pass from 35 yards out that bounces through your hands in the good old days when you could pick up back passes, there's not much of an excuse. That kid knew his stuff. I spent the next 2 Wrexham games at the back of the Cop and mates, just like shell-shocked, like Bishop Brennan and Father Ted after he'd been kicked up the backside, just staring at the goal mouth on the far end thinking, that's where it happened. It was awful. It was awful. A psychiatrist had to put on a glove puppet of a football pitch so I could show him where the bad things had happened. And on that bombshell...
The cop, yeah.
Oh, the cop, yeah. You can just about see me. No, actually, I was on the side of the pitch. I wasn't in the cop for that game. On that bombshell, let's have a little break.
The other side, you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Right, so let's have a think about the Racecourse, our spiritual home. And also a place which should be getting a revamp pretty soon. The new owners have brought in architects to give a structural survey of the ground because they want to see what needs to be altered. So, Jay, what's your wish list? I think the key one is behind you, isn't it?
Yeah, but for the audio listeners, I have the Boston Wrexham game. Background where was it Ryan Valentine took the penalty?
Yeah, with his wrong foot.
Yeah, with his wrong foot. That is the main thing I want to get done is the cop, and my wish list for the cop itself is to make it, if there's a way of engineering it, to make it as loud as possible, and making it an area for where. And I'd like this is my idea. You can shoot me down if you like. I'd like different areas of the stadium to be suitable for different types of fans.
Yeah.
So I would like the Mould Road to be where you go and you have a nice relaxing time. You know, you got the disabled areas, which would be suitable, and you can go there with your families and what have you, and you have a nice time, nice family day out. I would like the Cop to be where the 12th man go, where you go there and you're having a bit of a rowdy time, like the Cop at Liverpool, like the Holt End at Villa, like the Shed End, is it at Chelsea, where it's a bit rowdy, and you go in there and you're paying for the atmosphere and the fun aspect. And I would like the other stand. I keep on forgetting all the names of the stands now.
I can never remember what the sponsored names are. Yale stand.
Yeah, the Yale stand. I'd like the other stand to be where you can get a budget tickets, cheaper tickets for families who can't afford, and young professionals who can't afford to go to games. So that would be my sort of idea of transforming the racecourse.
That'd be terrific idea. That the issue with budget tickets, I suppose, would be that until we're getting to a point where we're filling capacity or getting close to filling capacity, that'll just end up being where everyone goes because it's cheaper. So we have to, be wary of that, I suppose. I seem to recall, again, did I dream this in the mid-'80s when under Thatcher the unemployment was out of control? I seem to recall us having a reduced rate for unemployed fans. I vaguely recall. I'd have to double check that.
That's brilliant.
But that would be, that's a nice gesture, isn't it? The Cop, they're talking about a 5,000 to 7,000 seater, which would bring the capacity up to around 15,000. And that's an exciting thought. In and of itself, it would open up the door for international football at the Racecourse again, of course. And the Cop's the obvious priority, isn't it? It'd be fantastic. And like you say, to make it intimidating. I'm just looking at the picture behind you as well. And the thing about the Cop, it was big and it housed a lot of people. Yeah. It was quite shallow in a way, the rake of the stand. And maybe in redesigning, guess what's bound to be, I'd assume, to get that many people in seats, I guess a double-decker. That will automatically bring the fans closer to it. And I suppose image in my head of a sort of like the Gladys Street end at Everton, that sort of two banks of people close to the pitch. So that should hopefully do what you hope for. And also you wouldn't have that big open gap between the Kop cover and the stands either side. Wrexham fans have often been obsessed with the idea of filling the corners of the ground. I don't see necessarily how we do that without a major restructure. I don't think you have to, but I think by bringing the Kop cover closer in, you achieve that. And there's a good atmosphere already at the racecourse, but if we can make it four-sided again and a little bit more enclosed, I think it would be terrific.
And I think having a system where a ticketing system for me, which might sound a bit odd, might sound a bit alien, where this is where, and everyone knows this is where the loud fans go.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who don't want to sit where people are going to stand up and sing songs, and there might be a drum, there might be all sorts going on there. There's a lot of people who don't want to go watch football for that. They want to go watch football for, the technical side, or they want to go watch football for a day out with their family. So I think housing each one of them sort of fans in a nice way would be brilliant. And that also brings me on to maybe having another, I don't know, maybe having an improved scoreboard as well would be one I would quite like.
Well, could I just go back before we talk about that and say one question you could ask is, would we be able to have safe standing on the Kop? It's an area which seems to divide people. And I understand why in some senses. For example, I mean, look, the reason that they stopped standing was Hillsborough. And Hillsborough is a horrific full stop in the history of British football. And it required lasting and drastic action. But so if the Hillsborough families, for example, were saying, no, don't ever go back to terraces, we can't have this happening again, I would feel that's a compelling argument.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they're not against safe standing per se, and because it's a different setup altogether. And I've been in a safe standing stand once. I was lucky enough to be at the Yellow Wall at Borussia Dortmund.
Wow.
And it was great. It was a fascinating experience, and there's no real scope for that sort of thing to happen. I mean, you get the very narrow metal barriers that go all the way across, except for the aisles, so they're very long. You have spaces marked out on the floor for you, and you're supposed to stick to those spaces. People don't, and it can get crowded in those narrow areas. There's basically room for 2 steps, so you can stand there, and there's someone standing in front of you, at an angle so that you're looking between people. As you can imagine, people don't stick to that. They go by their mates, and sometimes there's more than 2 rows going back, and sometimes it is a bit squashed. But I've got to say, it's a bit squashed. There's not going to be a crush because they're not going to have it happen. And there are stewards around who'll watch that sort of thing. They're only about a yard apart, these metal bars. So that you're not going to get that level of crush of a crowd coming on like that. It just won't happen. So I do think it's safe.
Is it UEFA approved though?
Yes. Oh, hang on. No,
for
it's not.
International matches. So that could be an issue, couldn't it?
Yeah, but then that's the point of safe standing, is that Dortmund stands when they've got European games to put the seats in.
Yeah, so, Spurs have that sort of thing as well, don't they? So yeah.
So I agree. I think that maybe the legislators aren't catching up with the technology here, but I think it's inevitable. It will be. Okay. I don't know if it's inevitable to be done, for the simple reason that football clubs tend to be run by business people who want to make money out of their clubs, and seated tickets are more expensive than standing tickets. And that might be the impetus that is lacking.
But the standing tickets, the advantage for me is that you're going to have people who go to games who don't want to stand up, and they might be plonked around people who want to stand up. So they're sitting down and they have free. I've seen it. My granddad goes to Villa Park a lot, and where we've sat there, there's people standing up where he wants to sit down, and he can't stand up a whole game.
Exactly.
So by having a standing area, it puts off the people who want to stand or want to be sitting around people who stand, they'll go in a different stand. So even if it's just a little section of the new cop that's standing, and I think there's a lot of people who want to stand at football games. It's quite iconic, isn't it? And having the cop as safe standing would be that would be the ultimate goal for me. I think that would be absolutely awesome. So what else?
Scoreboard.
What else would you? Scoreboard, yeah. So definitely. Like a proper scoreboard that keeps the time, maybe shows a bit of the highlights. I don't know, something along those lines. What would you think would be nice to have a good scoreboard?
I don't think there's any rules against showing the game live on a screen. I've seen that happen in the past. You could fill the corners by having more than one. Because I think if you've got the money to spend on things like scoreboards, it's fairly pointless having one, because you can't see it if you're in a quarter of the stand. I think the reason that scoreboard was put there is because when it was built, that was the away stand. And the attitude was, if the Wrexham fans can all see the scoreboard, who cares about the away fans? Partly just because, a logical way of thinking, I suppose, but also because the advertising would be local. So why do Notts County fans want to be finding out about Monera roof trusses? They don't. Yeah. They can go to Mansfield roof trusses, can't they, of course? Yeah. Other roof truss manufacturers are available. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to do that. It opens up all sorts of sponsorship possibilities. I think in general in sport, scoreboards are often underutilised. Now, there are restrictions. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that still in football, you're not supposed to show replays, because there's this notion that it will cause riots because football fans can't be trusted. I mean, I would argue it could be the opposite. When people get angry about an offside decision and then they see on the screen it was offside, they shut up. But, I don't see why you couldn't put the VAR. Oh, no, hang on. Actually, I think showing VAR could cause a riot simply because there's so many times you look at it and you think, really? You're really disallowing it for that?
But with phones this day and age, they can look. And it caused people anger anyway. So
it's legislation not catching up with the real world, not catching up with technology. Exactly right. Exactly.
What another thing I'd like to improve, and I wouldn't say it's basic, but is just new seats everywhere. Yeah, brand new seats. Muldrow, in the Muldrow, it's not so bad, is it?
Yeah.
Then if you look out the other stands, they look pink, and then they have the blue ones, don't they, in the paddock, and it looks a bit tatty, doesn't it? It does look a bit 70s, doesn't it, as you said on the Q&A.
Well, that's right. We were looking around the ground. It was quite handy to be out there, wasn't it? You got the seats in the corners of the Wrexham stands, which are brand new and have never been used because there's never been a need for them to be used. So they're bright red, and it shows how pink the others are. In amongst those patches of blue seats that you mentioned, there are red seats because they've had to be repaired. And when you look at the Wrexham stand, hangovers from having away fans there, they've had seats damaged, and they're very higgledy-piggledy. They just look nice, wouldn't it, as a sort of overall impression of the stadium.
And it's not a criticism of the club. You just have to make do, don't you, in those sort of situations? And I think the ground looks so good as it is now, but with a cop and some minor changes, it could look like a really good ground, like a championship level ground, which I think is the goal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'd say the difference that just things like seating can make. If you've seen in the last couple of seasons, Sevilla at the Sanchez Pizjuan, don't be careful saying that. They branded it. That word again, red, and so all the seats are red, and all the adverts, everything, all the signs are all white on red, all the same tone, and it's a very striking look. It looks really good. It looks unique. It looks recognizably Seville. The moment you put a game on, if it's Sevilla, you recognize it immediately. It's very effective. Now, I know a lot of advertisers are very precious about their logos, and I totally understand that, because colour is part of a brand, obviously, like I said with Sevilla. But sometimes I think that being flexible on that can be smart, and certainly the big corporations who are savvy will alter their logos or their colours for a special occasion to make it unusual and memorable. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name the company here because I shouldn't. But a few years ago, there was a mix-up between the club and the kit manufacturers. Nothing major, but our away kit came back with the sponsor's logo in the wrong colour. It wasn't in the company's colours. It was matching the trim of the away kit.
Right.
It was the most beautiful football kit you've ever seen in your life because the sponsor's logo slightly clashed. So it didn't go with the colour of the away kit, but having it the same colour as the trim, it was a handsome item. I really was. And when I saw it, I said, look at this, this is great. And I'd explained that when it came back, they showed it to the sponsors. He said, absolutely not. Our logo was our logo. You must stick to the same colour. And okay, I do respect and understand that. And I think they've got the right to demand that. So I'm not complaining, but I think that having a kit that becomes iconic, like like the one you're wearing now, that can give you a bigger boost than just a run-of-the-mill one. So I think that branding thing could be quite an effective thing. I remember going after what's his face, the green guy bought Forest Green, I've forgotten his name now, and just being struck by how they changed to a peculiar sort of shade of green, which they still have now, sort of light fluorescent green, and everything in the ground, signs in the toilets. When you stand at the urinal in Forest Green, all the different adverts they have up there for Forest Green stuff are all got that same brand, and that sort of brand consistency can be good, and you can bring it into the stadium as well. You can bring it into the kit, and it works, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and there is many things we could improve. And there's one thing I was thinking of is, you can quote me if I'm wrong now. You can completely shut me down, but is there any facilities? And I know there's a pub, there's the turf, which is, I know it's not officially a part of the club, but it morally is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this. I know the lads and women down at the turf, they do a fantastic job, but it's quite rowdy, isn't it? I know we have the scent as well, but maybe having a bar inside the ground for a more relaxed vibe, if you know what I mean, would be quite a good idea. A lot of Premier League clubs have that sort of thing where you can go and have a pint and have a burger and chips with your kids. That would be. I know we're restricted with the area around the ground because we don't really have much, do we?
Yeah.
But maybe having somewhere where you can have like a relax zone for disabled users, for kids and families, for a place where they can go and have a drink and a meal before the game.
Well, that touches on the other thing I was thinking, which is that the big thing that needs to be done is infrastructure. We talk about this a bit on the Q&A, that the ground is ancient. The oldest stands going back to the 1970s. The newest one is, nearly 25 years old. They are aging compared to the modern requirements. And some of those things, I think, can be fixed. But there's a lack of office space and areas to do things different in the ground.
Yeah.
There's different ways, I suppose, of addressing this. And one I was thinking was that once the training ground's up and running, it might be that, like a lot of clubs, we actually base the club there.
Yeah.
Which opens up the spaces at the stadium, like office spaces for match day use. So it could be that we do something like that. But yeah, they and the other side, I suppose, of this, but will it benefit us? I mean, the reason we dropped it will benefit us, of course. Well, sorry, the reason we dropped the application to house the Museum of Welsh Football in a new cop stand was that essentially, there was concern from the Welsh government that there wouldn't be footfall. It's right on the edge of town. People aren't going to be just wandering in town and saying, I'll go in there. But it was also the club saying that basically we'd lose money. If the club housed it there, we wouldn't make any money out of it. If we're building a cop with space, we want retail there. Now, whether that's our retail or it's us leasing it out and getting that rent money for a pub like you're describing, I assume we're not looking to keep units if it's like a sort of little industrial area at the back.
Yeah.
For ourselves, I assume we will rent it out, but there's scope there to be imaginative, I guess, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely, and it's now we have a good pumping money injection. I think the best thing to do at the short term is maybe just sprucing it all up just a little bit. The minor little cracks in the stadium could be filled, and you get a construction team in to make it look nice. And maybe my idea would be having graffiti inside the ground. Like in the what's the word? Inside, where people get the concourses of like ex-players and important members of the Wrexham community, or the badge, just having a nice graffiti and making it look like a place that's really iconic and quite cool to go to, and a unique ground, because we are a unique football club, and that should be celebrated, shouldn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. I like that idea. Yeah. Free Wi-Fi for the fans.
Yeah,
I like that idea too.
Yeah.
There's a Wi-Fi for the club. Another thing we mentioned in the Q&A, the fact that the analysts have to grab their laptop and run across the pitch to get the analysis to Dean Keats for half time, when hopefully they should be able to do it on the fly, make a clip, send it, and it's there.
And having a better infrastructure for the media team, so they know the Wi-Fi is not going to go down, so they can't, like the Mixler commentary, if that goes down, it can be a nightmare for some people who can't afford the stream or can't afford to go to the games. The radio is what they've got, or they're at work, so making sure that all the equipment for that, and all the equipment for the stream, all the equipment for the highlights is just that step above would be brilliant, wouldn't it? That's vital, isn't it?
There was an issue at the game on Tuesday. I think it's fair enough for me to say this, where at the start of the second half, something was chewing at a bandwidth that the stream was using, and there was a danger it could crack, which obviously would be a collapse, which obviously be a major issue when we're looking to offer a better service. If it then collapsed, that would look bad. And it was resolved because there was some really good work behind the scenes, and they found what the problem was, and the problem wasn't actually related to the coverage of the game, and so they were able to fix it. But having better infrastructure would fix that, and would also allow the media team to spread its wings a little bit, which will happen. The media team's limited by lack of funds and lack of personnel, but that's something which will be addressed.
Just like any media team at this level, though, isn't it, really?
Well, I mean, to be fair, most media teams at our level are not doing anywhere near as much as we do. But there's ambition in the media team. There's just a lack of resources. But now it looks like we will have those resources, so it's a rather exciting time. Yeah,
and just the just general tidy up of the ground is what. Because walking around the ground the other day, I thought, you don't think about it until you get asked the question, but you look around, you're like, just the general wear and tear needs to be in. There's a lot of wear and tear, and the toilets could probably do with sprucing up, some tiled and making it look, little things like that, and make a big difference, don't they, in the long scheme of things? And just little things like that could be done with, and I know they will be done, but we all got to be patient as well, haven't we?
I'd love to see a major redevelopment of the Rexrent stand and the Yale stand. I'd love that, but I don't think that's on the cards anytime soon. I mean, look how long it's taken to replace the Cop. So I really don't think that's on the cards anytime soon. I know we have cash-rich owners now, but they're looking for sustainable change, and I don't think there'd be a huge benefit in doing that. The stands will hold people. I don't think we'll get a huge amount out for a big outlay.
As long as there's no real structural problems, then it's fine, isn't it?
It's fine for now. I'd love to see that redeveloped. I'd love to see a sort of uniform look across the new Cop stand, which I assume will not be similar to the Mull Road stand, and the other two sides. I'd love that. I don't mean like identikit, these horrible brand new stadiums that you can't tell which ground you're in now.
Like fishbowl ground,
they're just horrible. But I quite like the idea of of being freshened up, redeveloped. But I think that's too much of a wish list, I think, to ask for.
Going back to the Kop, would you like it? The actual aesthetics of the Kop, would you like it to look modern, or would you like it to look traditional? Or it's a strange one, isn't it?
That's a good point, isn't it?
I was thinking you don't want something that looks completely, utterly modern, and then the rest of the stadium looking, I don't know. We'll let the engineers deal with that.
I'll be honest. I think I've sort of talked myself out of what I said before. I started off talking about uniformity, and then started disagreeing with myself a bit. And I'm starting to think now, the way you avoid those identity kit stadiums is each stand has its own character.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, having said that, let's be honest, the Kop, the Yale stand, the Wrexham stand are all built in similar times. The Kop roof, they're all built similar times, late 70s, early 80s, and they are uniform, aren't they? Really, really look at them, they're pretty similar. And it's pretty bog standard corrugated metal boxes.
No, there's a difference. Like, say, look at Southampton Leicester's ground and Pride Park. They all pretty much look like the same thing, don't they?
Yeah.
Horrible, fishbowl. There's no real character. Then you look at the more traditional grounds. So Villa Park, the Kop, Goodson Park. All these, they've got that modern rejuvenation about them. They've still got that traditional vibe about when you go to them, you're thinking, this is a proper English football ground.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want with Wrexham. I don't want a fishbowl. I don't want the corners filled in. I want a proper old school, but safe and modern, not old school looking ground, but it's hard to explain, but like a traditional looking ground, but still modern at the same time.
Bradford City, the Valley Parade, behind the goal, they have the double-decker away stand. Now, I believe, I've never been in it, I believe it's actually not a very good stand. I believe again, the rake is wrong and the views are poor and they're obstructed. But something aesthetically like that it feels quite, it would have to be bigger than that, but feels close to the pitch because of the overhang of the top tier. I quite like the look of that.
Yeah, I like Stockport's. Stockport's the big stand behind the goal at Stockport. I quite like that one. Something like that would be brilliant. To be honest with you, Mark, anything would be brilliant right now, wouldn't it?
Hey, fair enough. Well, I'll get me set square out and
look. But if you look at the Kop, it needs to be. Something's missing, isn't it, at the racecourse? And it is the Kop, isn't it? Yeah, because the Kop was always the most iconic stand, wasn't it? It was the most talked about stand. It's where the atmosphere was. It was where a lot of the so-called hardcore fans went, and it needs to be done, and that's the number one priority, isn't it?
100%, absolutely. Well, I think that's a strong point to finish our show on, isn't it? Really, Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a hardened Kopite like yourself with me again, and let's hope that we can get it all sorted out, and we'll look at the stadium that we can feel even more proud of in the future. And to finish us off, well, what else could we do but the Jay Harris Hollywood send-off?
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.